Lakeson.
Thank you guys for coming today. Go ahead and call Public Facilities Safety Committee to order on August 28th. I apologize in advance for my voice. It is going in and out. With that said, I'd like for everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Sarah, could you call roll for me, please?
Councilmember Tabernick,
Present.
Councilmember Reeds,
Present and online.
Councilmember Lawson,
Mark Lawson here.
Councilmember Howard,
Present.
Councilmember Glover,
Here.
Councilmember Dawson, absent. Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Vice Chair McKellen is absent. Chairman Passament,
Present.
Committee Chair Committee Chair Cunningham,
Present.
Vice Chair Bartholomew.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Sarah. Public notification of this meeting has been posted, published, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. May I have a motion for the approval of the agenda today?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? This will be approved with no discussion, with no objection. I have a motion for the approval of the minutes for May 22nd, 2023, as well as June 26, 2023.
So moved.
It's moved. And a second, please.
I'll make it second.
Not all at once, guys. Thanks, David. Any discussion about that?
I think we need some hot coffee.
We definitely need it. That'll be moved forward with no objections, and we will go into citizens' comments. As always, anyone who wishes to speak during the citizens' comment portion of the meeting will limit their comments and speak no longer than 3 minutes. Speakers will address the council in a respectful manner appropriate to the decorum of the meeting, refraining from the use of profane, abusive, or obscene language. An ordinance of Beaufort County's rules and procedures, giving a speaker's time to another is not allowed. We have four people, I'm sorry. Skip, how'd you sneak your name onto this list? You told me you weren't gonna do it today.
I'm not gonna do 3 minutes.
All right.
30 seconds maybe.
First one is Michael Murphy. Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Michael Murphy. I live on Ladies Island, and I'm here today to speak in favor of item 8 on today's agenda. So the Beaufort County has a very active passive park system and rural and critical land program. Since 1999, the program has secured 113 land parcels for a total of just under 24,000 acres. This next potential addition could prove to be the crown jewel of the whole program. The Cherry Hill Oak Park will be a facility like no other open space throughout the entire Low Country. On its 12 acres grows a diverse collection of Low Country native trees, but it also houses 32 landmark trees, as well as the Cherry Hill live oak itself. And this is Beaufort County's oldest and largest documented tree. So the tree's already a celebrity. In 2009, it topped the Beaufort 3-century Big Tree Search as the area's largest and oldest tree. In 2013, it was dedicated as the Heritage Tree of the Year by Trees SC, which is South Carolina's community forestry arm. And in 1818, 22-year-old Mary Pope, a member of the Baptist Church of Beaufort, was laid to rest under this tree's branches. And we have reason to believe that there are more graves in the area. So this site has ecological, environmental, arboricultural, and multicultural importance. And this committee today has the ability to preserve it forever with your recommendation of approval to today's resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Grant?
Hello, my name is Grant McClure. I'm with the Coastal Conservation League here in Beaufort. Our address is 1212 King Street. I'm here to talk about the Cherry Hill Oak as well. I kind of want to backtrack a little bit and talk about how we got here. almost a year ago, on September 1st of 2022, this piece of property was actually before the Town of Port Royal's Design Review Board for a height variance for some apartments that were going to be right at the base of this tree. Thankfully, that variance was denied. The community showed up in support of protecting this tree, and with help from the Town of Port Royal, the community, the landowners, fast forward a year, and we're talking about permanent protections for Beaufort County's largest live oak, for the 32 other landmark trees that are on this property at the headwaters of the Battery Creek. So it's taken a lot of collaboration amongst multiple partners, and I'm excited to see this property hopefully become a passive park one day, because it really should be publicly accessible for everyone and celebrated. This tree is larger than Johns Island's Angel Oak by some measurements, and the added significance of having the grave, right at the base of the tree. It really tells a story, and we want to make that story accessible to all. So you have the power to do that today, and I hope you'll vote accordingly. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Grant. Kevin Phillips.
Thank you all very much. My name is Kevin Phillips. I'm a councilman for the Town of Port Royal, and I wanted to say thank you, one, for getting this on y'all's agenda. I know y'all got a lot going on, and so I appreciate that. I'm here to just show my support for number 8, the cherry oak tree. We believe it's really important to the Town of Port Royal. If you look at where it's located at, it's kind of it's on the boundaries of our town limits. And it's kind of up in that area. We really don't have any park green space open to the public. And as you heard before, it's got a huge historical significance, environmental significance. And we also think it would be just a great piece for the public. We're here to support. Back in June, the town, we voted and issued a proclamation showing our support. I believe you have a copy of that in your packets. I'm here today with Town Manager Van Willis, and our Planning Director Noah Krebs is here in the back from the town. This is a really great example of when multiple government agencies, public, private, citizens get engaged, and we can really do something really great and positive for the citizens of this county and of the Town of Port Royal. So just here to support that, and thank you for your time, and just urge you to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Skip Hoagland.
Thank you very much. Skip Hoagland, Jenkins Island, Windmill Harbor, Hilton Head. We really don't know who we are. In light of the Greenway scandal, Mayor Soka caught at misuse of tax funds, Mayor Perry recently committing what I call financial fraud or financial malfeasance. I ask all of our in-house budgets prepared and audits and prepared in-house. I ask those to be independently audited. Also, wait a minute, let me finish. I'm getting to my point. No.
I'm going to
My
ask
point is,
first. I'll even pause.
no. Let me finish my point. I haven't got to my point.
Skip,
I also
will
want to
keep it
make
if it's
sure
not about it,
that
if
all
it's not.
public funds, let me make a point. I want to make sure that public funds are not used for private purposes. The example I'm going to give you,
Skip,
wait a
which
minute, it's a public service and monies are being used for buying equipment and public use. You cannot, I just want to warn you that you can't use public monies for private purpose, and the dredging of Harbortown would be somebody that would be
Okay.
asking for
Skip, I'm
funds.
going to ask you to stop. or
Okay.
you're not? Thank you.
Okay, well.
Thank you for your time,
so-
Skip.
So
No, Skip.
Hilton Head has had a lawsuit
chance,
filed
Skip.
against him, and I want y'all to be careful how you use public money. That's it.
Do we have anybody else for public comment today? How many of you guys are here with Cherry Hill? I appreciate you guys taking the time to come out. A lot of people don't come out to committee meetings, they just come to the county council meetings. I know sometimes they're at a weird time, so I just want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your day, being so dedicated to getting this done. It is something that we're hoping to get accomplished, and we're glad all these groups could come together to get it done. I just wanted to recognize you guys. We also had a bunch of emails come in. I know I was able to read a few of them that were coming in, so I just want you guys to know that they were seen by the council members. They were forwarded over to us, so thank you for taking that time too, for those of you online, if you weren't able to make it today. Awesome. We'll close citizen comments and move on to item number 7. It's going to be an update from our Assistant County Administrator, Jared. Thanks, Jared.
Thank you, Chairman. Cunningham and the rest of the committee. So I wanted to give you guys a brief, we've done this before at previous committee meetings and we paused for a while. I wanted to just have the opportunity to update you on a few items that aren't necessarily on the agenda item for action, but things that we're working on within the division and public safety and capital projects. First, in transportation, a unified MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, trying to get out of the, using all our acronyms, Mr. Abernick. So Metropolitan Planning Organization, that's how we look at regionally at our roads network. LATS, Low Country Area Transit Study is another acronym. That's the name of the body that is over that. Earlier in the year, due to the census data, the northern part of Beaufort County had the opportunity to form their own MPO. There was limited information from DOT, but there was a deadline that DOT needed an answer. All of the northern entities, Beaufort County, City of Beaufort, and Town of Port Royal got together, decided it was more worthwhile to be in one unified MPO, even if there was less money than what we would get if we were two separate ones. We didn't know exactly what that money was, how much we would get or not get, but we trusted the process and stayed as one. Recently, it's not approved yet by DOT Commission, but there's a presentation that DOT is making in September to the Commission on the new funding allocation, of which our unified MPO will increase from 5.9 million to 8.5 million over the next 2 years. So a $2.6 million step up because we're together as one. So pretty significant. Just wanted to highlight that and point it out. Other transportation, 278 Joint Independent Study. That study is coming to a close. We're about to have a final report to issue out to everyone in the next 2 weeks, and we'll send that out to all of council, and then we'll have our consultant CBB from Missouri. They'll be flying out and make a presentation to Beaufort County Council, and then at the end of September, and then the 1st of October to the town of Hilton Head. So at that point, we'll take a look at what the recommendations are and how do we move the project forward from there. Closely connected is Windmill Harbor Signal. So Skip, you'll be happy to realize that Windmill Harbor Signal is moving forward. Thank you. So we've worked hard to expedite this, and so we have a contractor established and set, ready to go at the first week of September. We are working, and Eric Clausen and his group is working to finalize our encroachment permit with DOT. We're pretty close. We're back and forth on a few comments, and we think we'll get that so that we can seamlessly move straight into construction from there. So most of that work is going to take place at night, so you won't see a lot of it going on during the daytime, but it will be getting done here sooner than later. And I'm just going to give you the highlights of the highlight list. So I'm not going through all these. I'll send out an email with these so you guys have them. But just a few more from the other departments in Public Works. There's 2 marine projects going on, both in the Alljoy neighborhood. So the Alljoy boat landing is going to get a improved ramp there, not ramp, dock. And it's going to have an L shape. So we're going to replace the piles. And then right now it just goes straight out. We're going to go straight out and add a L to it. So that project's about to go out to bid, or is currently out to bid. And then additionally, the property that we bought right next to it, 2 Mullet Street, has a residential dock. We did an evaluation on the shape of that dock, and it needs some repair. So it was more than repair, so it needed, or more than a rehab. So we're going to demolish that and then replace. The demolition of that deck is, or dock is about to go out to be advertised in the next couple weeks. Disaster recovery, as we're all aware, we're into hurricane season. So we're revisiting our emergency rosters and make sure our teams are finalized with some of our new personnel. So making sure we're squared away for that. In the airports, this is for all you runners and walkers, not just runners, but the Flying Frog, annual Flying Frog Race 5K out on Beaufort Executive is this weekend. You have the last few days to sign up to see if you can beat John.
Flying frog?
We
October.
have to start training this week.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for the correction. You got a little bit more time to train. So John ran a 21-minute 5K, barely beat his son. We'll see if he beats his son this year or not with a year worth of training. All those, whether you run a 20-minute mile or not, or a 20-minute 5K, you're more than welcome to come out there in October. Also in November is the Hilton Head Motor Event, Island Motor Event. So that was a really successful, basically They have cars from all around come out, but they also have planes, and that'll be at Hilton Head Airport in November. St. James Baptist Church, county and town staff are working we have an existing MOA that we're working to amend or make an amendment to how that is functioned so that we can move the project forward. We've had good discussions with the town on that and actually have a positive meeting with FAA planned for this week, and we'll see what comes of that meeting. So looking forward to movement on that. From capital projects, stop me if you have a question. I'm just hitting these highlights. So stop me if you have a question. Public Works Admin Building is currently under design. So that building will be at Shanklin Road. It'll house Public Works, capital projects, engineering, and other related departments. It'll also have a coordination center and a training room in that facility. The design will continue into the spring and go out to bid sometime next summer. Arthur Horn Complex, so the
Let me just stop you there,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. Because the design of that building, is the building's being designed to take us how far in the future is my question.
So it was all based off the facility master plan, which was a 30-year look ahead. So at least 30 years.
Gotcha.
That's our goal.
Okay, thank you.
And that is all going to be at the site, and we've got a lot of property there at the site. So if we ever have to expand, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Okay.
The Arthur Horn Complex, our building next door, is finally complete and fully occupied. We're working to finish pulling out the IT infrastructure out the old Arthur Horn building, and as soon as that's done, we've got to do some asbestos abatement. And when that's complete, then we'll move into demolition of that building, and it will be replaced with a parking lot per the original design of the whole Arthur Horn complex. Also in capital projects is voters registration warehouse expansion. So you had approved previously an expansion to the existing voters registration, about 1,700 square foot. That has been awarded to Beaufort Construction, and they're going to get started on that project here shortly. In public safety, we've got several renovations that are taking place in the detention center, all across from painting the flooring to body scan installation, cell door upgrades, locker room, a whole host of things. Those projects are all in the works and will be coming forward here and there as progress allows. The Sun City Fire and EMS Station, I try to keep this a happy-go-lucky presentation. This project is not happy-go-lucky. Every now and then you just have hard projects that are harder than they should be. This is one of them. We are working through that effort, and we're trying to have this project finished up by the end of November. So it has been
What's the holdup with it?
We've had challenging issues with our contractor.
Okay.
So, again, sometimes that happens on construction projects. We do a lot of construction projects throughout the county. Most of them go pretty well. Every now and then you just have one not so great.
This is the one right outside the gate, right?
Outside
Back
the gate, yep.
By like Oakdale House and stuff.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they've made good progress there.
They have, but then we've had issues where they didn't have everything right for inspections and a whole host of issues. So anyhow, it's just one of those projects. We'll fight, we'll get through it. But just know that that project is ongoing. And lastly, two other projects, Charles Lynn Brown Community Center. If you haven't been there, there's been a lot of good renovations, a lot of painting, redoing some rooms, upfitting the workout station, and more recently the open end. If you're familiar with the building, there's a big open area that's been remodeled. We have a really good I was about to say old folks, that's not the right term.
Seniors.
Seniors. Sorry.
Careful.
We have a really good seniors program. If you're familiar with it, there's a lot of ladies in the program, not that many men. This is actually going to be a man cave, so kudos to Shannon. I don't know if she's represented in Chuck. A man cave, so they'll have things that senior men like to do. So play poker or pool or different things.
Is there a woman cave?
All the rest of them are she sheds. That's right. Anyhow, the seniors program.
You backed that up really well.
Yeah. The seniors program is going really good. And we're just glad that one's getting remodeled and it's going to have a lot of use out of it. If you haven't, we do have a couple things left to do, some grading outside, some drainage improvements, and issues with the pool deck that we're working on. And then lastly, I said two more things. The Ogeechee River Passive Park, so this is at Pepper Hall. The design is being scheduled. It should be complete here soon and go out to bid in the next 60 to 90 days. So good job on that one to Passive Parks. And then lastly is the indoor pools. Last year, everybody's aware at MC Riley, we had to replace a roof. We're moving into phase 2 of improvements there at MC Riley, which includes HVAC, sliding doors and restroom renovations, as well as looking at the other pools at Battery Creek High School and Beaufort High School and working on those improvements as well. So I know there's a whole list of items. I will send you guys an email of this. I'll get John to send that out. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Where is Pepper Hall? Is that on 278?
278, right across from
the street
Toyota.
from Stokes.
Yep.
Oh, okay. And there's gonna be a park in there?
Yeah, so in the back part of that development agreement is a passive park on the
Okay,
water,
so-
on Oak Creek
Waterfront
River.
park.
Oh, really?
So,
Oh.
commercial towards the front,
Aren't they building homes in
residential.
there?
Ma'am?
Aren't they building homes in there?
Yeah, it's a mixed use, so there's commercial up front, residential, and then a park at the
So we'll be able to
back
cut
end.
through that neighborhood and use that park?
So you know the new road that, there was a paved road that was recently paved right beside the Honda lot?
Yes,
That
yes.
will go back all the way to the park.
Okay, wow, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd
Absolutely.
like to thank Jared for remembering to explain to the audience the acronyms, because
Yeah.
when you don't live with it, they don't know what it is.
No, we have a lot of them and, we
That
just
was
speak
good.
them, so try to catch myself, but thank you.
Anybody else? Real quick on the pools thing. We are looking, myself specifically, I know others, we're interested in some type of future design for pools in the county. Those are conversations still ongoing, but we do need to maintain the pools we have currently going on during that process. So that is still something we're discussing as options as a council, and just finding the right location and the right mixed use for it is where we're at right now. Other than that, Jared, thanks for keeping us going.
You're welcome. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to item number 8, which is why everybody is here today, not just to come see us. Recommend of approval of resolution authorizing the interim county administrator to execute the necessary documents to provide funding for the fee simple purchase of real property known as Cherry Hill Oak. Fiscal impact is $1,550,000, and that is coming out of rural and critical lands for funding.
Good afternoon, committee members. Again, I'm Amanda Flake, the Natural Resource Planner for the Planning Department and staff to the Rural and Critical Lands Program. Before you today, we have a fee simple purchase for the Cherry Hill Oak. This was brought forward to you a while back for due diligence. We are now to the point where we are ready to purchase. This is 11.92 acres in the town of Port Royal. The price that Mr. Cunningham said was $1.55 million, which is 87% of the appraised value, so it's under appraised value. The landowner also is going to contribute some money for the maintenance of the program, which will go into the Passive Park Department for use on this property. Also, the town of Port Royal agreed to accept maintenance responsibility for this property, so we have a partnership with the town of Port Royal. And there's also been private funds raised for tree maintenance and park infrastructure, and I believe this is the Low Country Community Foundation for some ad hoc park work. So this is before you today for a recommendation for purchase.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the motion. I'd like to add a special thanks to Hope Cunningham and Mike Murphy for all the hard work and the community did on this project. They were out at the farmer's market on Saturdays, spreading the word and raising funds for maintenance of it. And it's just been a really success for the community and for the county. Thank you.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Anybody else for discussion? Yes, sir? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Murphy mentioned there may be other graves at that site. We planning on looking at that possibility to see whether, is that something that can be done?
I can answer that.
Mr. Atkinson.
Hey, good afternoon. So we do not have plans at this time to do that,
But if council desires that, there are a number of different ways that we can do that.
I would love to know, and so that it can be protected.
Sure.
That
So the way we can do that is using ground penetrating radar and some other options that we have. We'll be happy to put together a proposal, see what the options are, and bring those back to you.
I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. One of the things that happened on Datal was basically that. They discovered that the slave cemetery there and basically outlined those graves, even though there was no headstone, but there's a plaque showing that there are cemeteries, the graves in this particular cemetery. I would love to know that so that the public would be aware and respect the deceased.
We will definitely do that. Yes, sir.
I would just like to reiterate what everyone said earlier. It's nice to see everyone come together for this project, multiple groups, municipalities, and the county. Can we move this forward with no objection?
Yes.
This will move on to county council with no objection. Thank you. So does that mean you guys are just gonna stay around for the rest of the show? If not, I'll give you guys a couple moments to head out if you'd like. If you're willing to stay and want to, more than welcome to, but just figured I'd go ahead and give you guys the offer. Thank you very much for coming in today, y'all. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it's always nice to have an audience.
I know.
You dismiss the-
Well, I told Joe I thought they were here for me. I guess he was right. They weren't.
We need to move this along.
Yes.
We only have.
Yep. All right, we are going to go ahead and move forward into number 9. We have quite a few things to get through. Recommend of approval of a resolution to approve the Hilton Head Island Airport cost recovery model and revised airline rates. Thanks, John. How you doing?
Absolutely. Good afternoon. Thank you. I thought everybody was here for me, like the airport's board, but they're probably all watching it on their mobile device, so that's fine. All right. The first item here, the cost recovery model, we spoke about this a little bit before, but it's kind of the culmination of an 18-month process, give or take a few months. And what we did was we worked with a professional firm that's a sub-consultant of our main engineering and planning firm that works with the airports. And this is their business. This is what they do every day is analyze rates and charges, do airline negotiations and that type of thing. So the first step that we had to take was to analyze all the expenses at the airport. And then we assigned each one of those expenses to different cost centers. And when we did that and analyzed those, we found that the rates and charges that were currently being charged to the airlines did not cover expenses that could be assigned to the airlines. So in other words, they were using the airport, not paying their way 100%. So the next step was to draft a plan to recover those expenses that we needed to do in order to break even. So very long story short, we generated a plan that would take 2 years to get to full recovery. This year, this first fiscal year, 24, is the first half of that implementation. Then next year would be the second half to get us even. We did meet with the airlines in person twice down to Hilton Head Island Airport. We briefed the plan. They accepted the plan, and so we're underway. One of the good things about this plan is it is a living plan, and we revisit it twice a year. So we do a mid-year check-in just to see how, expenses are trending and what our charges are, what our rates are. And then at the end of each fiscal year, our fiscal year, we'll sit down with the airlines and we'll do a reconciliation. So at the end of the day, all the airport does is recover those costs, nothing more, nothing less.
Perfect.
That's what we have.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second that.
Ms. Brown with the second. Any other discussion? Move this forward with, actually, does not need to go to county council, does it?
Resolution, yes, sir.
It does, just kidding. We'll move this forward to county council with no objection. Number 10, recommend approval of resolution to accept SC Aeronautics Commission grant offer 23-029 for $12 million for HDX terminal improvements.
Yes, first it's HXD, we had a typo there. That's Hilton Head Island Airport again. And if you remember, just over a year ago, Senator Davis came forward and gave a briefing from the end of, I guess it was an FY22 and the budget for FY23, and that included that $12 million to be used for the terminal And what happens with that is that money has to go through an agency to disperse it. Obviously, Aeronautics was chosen to do that. They've issued the grant to us, and that's what this is, just our formal acceptance of that grant.
Perfect. Do we have a motion to
I'll
move this
make the
forward?
motion.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Move this forward, no objection. This will move forward to County Council with no objection. Number 11, recommend approval of a contract award to Edison Ford Incorporation for Phase 1 of the Hilton Head Island Airport Commercial Service Terminal improvements.
I think this is what everybody's been waiting for.
Yes.
If I could get $1 for every time someone asked me when the terminal was gonna start, I'd be retired by now. But we do have a good contractor who's ready to go, and so this is attached in the packet or the bid tab, so you can see what everybody bid on the project. But we do have a good cost basis to go forward with Phase 1 of the terminal, and that's what this is. Phase 1 will basically consist of most of the new construction. So it'll have the new boarding gate areas, it'll have the new security screening checkpoint. It'll include a lot of the work on the entrance road and the road in front of the terminal. It will probably have some of the parking, even if it's kind of on a temporary basis, off to the side. And we should have at least one of the jet bridges included in this phase, which would be a welcome addition.
If you take a look at the revenue, well, the cost of it, you'll see all of it was done through grants or SC budget line item, which was the one we just approved beforehand, or the airport is paying for it. So is there any impact on this, on the county itself, fiscal?
There is a share, the airport share of this is actually tied to the FAA grant. So we've got just over $21 million in FAA funds going into this, actually over 22 million, 22.6 million. So by math, we have a $2.2 million obligation from the airport. That will happen over the life of that construction, so we're looking at a couple of years. And again, those are project payments that happen, so we'll have 10% of those project payments as we move along
As
the
it goes
path.
forward.
So we're good with that as far as the airport budget is concerned.
Perfect.
I have a question, Mr. Chair. On this one that's on the screen, this does not match item 10's funding. So I'm trying to figure out, this one says FAA grants 22.6 million. On item 10, it's 21.6 million. And on this one for the airport, it's 2.2 million. On the other one, it's 2.160 million. So I'm confused why they're not the same.
I think that on this item, I think that may be a typo. I think that's supposed to be 21.6.
That's what the other one says, right?
Correct. I think that's the correct number, and that would make our math, that's an approximation, the 2.2, so that would make that
Okay.
approximation correct. So thank you for that.
We will have to adjust that, the clerical error, but we have it documented properly on the back end, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second, please.
I'll second it.
Any objection?
No.
This will be moved forward with no objection, and we'll go into number 12. Recommend approval of a resolution by Beaufort County Council authorizing the Beaufort Executive Airport Facility use rates changes. Facility use rates changes.
Yes, I think your AIS might have that repeated.
Yes, they do. ARW. We
You
got
may
you.
not have the
Because
updated.
Jared was being
Yes.
ready to go for those.
That's
acronyms.
right. Does your AIS have a table under the fiscal impact?
Mhm.
It does, okay.
Yes.
All right, so you have that, good. With the FY 23-24 comparison, okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
Perfect.
All right, so we just didn't catch the double on that. What this is the, as you can read in the description, it's been a long time since the overall use fees have been updated. And it's a facility that obviously gets older every week like the other facilities, and we need to self-fund the maintenance on that. It is part of the county's desire of the airports as an enterprise fund, and as part of the FAA's requirement of the airports to be financially self-sufficient. So increasing or having reasonable use charges for the folks who use the airport helps us to meet both of those goals. So that's what this means. And as you may see, I don't know if it's spelled out in there specifically, but this does favor the tenants. So we do try to take care of our local folks at the airport who are hangared there and tied down. So although they have some increases as well, they're much smaller than the transient folks will see.
which Sarah just put on the screen, I believe.
There we go. Yes.
Perfect.
Why is there no increase in the large aircraft fee, ramp fee?
Well, we do kind of a comparative analysis when we look at these fees. So we'll look on a regional basis to see what other airports are charging. And this is pretty much in line with what other ones are charging. So that one actually made sense when we analyzed the fees. Most
So
of
we're
the
already
other
on
ones showed
par
up
to
a little
begin
bit
with.
low.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Entertain a motion?
I'll make the motion.
A second, please.
Second.
Any other discussion? And this will also be moved forward with no objection, and I see no objection. Moving on to number 13, recommend approval of a resolution and an interim letter of agreement for shuttle services between Beaufort County and the Best of Hilton Head.
All right, thank you. And this is, the reason we call it an interim letter of agreement is this is our first shot at shuttle service at the airport in many, many years. My understanding is that in the past, some of the resorts and hotels might have had shuttles, but that kind of went away for a number of years. As you know, there's still taxi cabs there, but Uber and Lyft have gotten very popular, and the demand for shuttle services has come back. And so a company called Best of Hilton Head, a local company down there, has requested to provide, on reservation basis shuttle service. And we have a couple other folks who are interested as well. So we took this opportunity to draft this interim letter of agreement, kind of a policy to go by for this first year and see how that goes with the shuttles. And this is good for the customers because it provides more options for ground transportation, and it is a revenue generator for the airport.
Perfect.
Question.
Yes, ma'am?
Are they the only provider, or are you gonna have bids from others to come in, or is this the only one?
At this point, this is the only one, but we do have a couple more who we know are interested, and then they'd fall under the same arrangement.
So it's competitive at that point?
It's open, yes. It's totally non-exclusive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion? Move this forward.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Perfect. And this will move forward, no objection?
I do have a question, though.
Yes, sir.
What's the anticipated, do you have an idea of how many people are going to be using this?
I would imagine since we're starting to tail off the summer season, it'll probably be a little bit low this year, but hopefully it'll be a lot more popular next year. There was demand this year, and we're just kind of getting to it, so that happens.
All right, thanks.
Any others? This will move forward, no objection.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it, John. You had your work cut out for you today. All right, number 14, recommend approval of a contract to award IFB 081023E Bluffton Parkway Pathway Project to First Construction Management. Eric?
Good afternoon, Chairman.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well.
Good, good. This is one of many pathways that we have that are part of the 2018 transportation sales tax. So this is one of the first ones you're going to see, but we have Alljoy, Laurel Bay, Stewart Point, and Depot Road that are all going to be coming to you in the next month or so. So a lot of movement on these pathways. This is one actually that we had to rebid though. So the original bid was in July or June 9th of 2022. Brought that forward. We only had one bidder to begin with for that original bid. We were not able to come to terms on that contract. There were a few things that, as far as property acquisition, that had to occur. So we went out for a rebid on July 10th of 2023. We actually had 4 respondent bidders this go around. So again, hopefully a little more activity as far as contractors being interested in this type of work for us. So that was good. And this bid actually came in lower than what we had previously gotten from the previous bid the year earlier. So again, this is for 650 feet of pathway. It was just a gap on Bluffton Parkway from the traffic circle on Bluffton Parkway at 46 down to Sopperton, which is right there by Myrtle Park. The county facilities over there. So it's filling in that gap. And again, that First Construction Management is the apparent low bidder at the total cost on this one with a 20% contingency is $227,010.44. That I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions?
I just want to thank you for under fiscal impact. you put the account number and the balance, which is what I was interested, so I don't have to go dig it up. So I appreciate you putting that in there.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion. I should let you make the motion.
I would love to, but
You.
I don't think I can, to be honest.
All right, I'll make it for you. I'm next door.
I'll second that.
Second, perfect. I'd just like to say the comment, or more of a question. I think this is the second project we've had in like 4 or 5 months that's been less than we thought it was gonna be. Are we starting to see some of those prices come down, or did we just get lucky on those two?
Well, yeah, I think that there probably is a little more interest. We are reaching out to a few others. We've gotten some other contractors that we typically have not had on some of these pathway projects. At least on pathway projects, hopefully that's a good sign of things to come.
Yeah.
On some of the bigger projects, I just don't think that the contractors are necessarily super hungry right now with all the state work going on. So again, I think on the smaller projects, hopefully that is a sign of things to come. But again, we'll keep all that information in each one of these packets so that you all know what that looks like.
Perfect. Thank you. Move this forward with no objection. And this will go forward with no objection. So number 15, 16, 17, and 18, this is gonna be Jared. All of these have to do with purchasing new equipment. I would like to entertain a motion to take all 4 of them together, after I read them, if someone's so inclined. And then we'll let Jared, give some info on that. Number 15, recommended approval to purchase a mower max with front lift and boom attachments for the Public Works Departments, Roads and Drainage Division. Number 16 is recommended approval to purchase a bucket truck under state contract 060920, which is a Dodge Ram 5500 4x4 Cummins diesel for traffic operations. Recommend approval, number 17 is recommend approval to purchase a dump truck for the Public Works Department through the Source Well Contract 060920, Roads and Drainage Division. Recommend approval to purchase 4 replacement ambulances for Beaufort County EMS Department, which is number 17. And if I remember correctly, all 4 of these are being funded out of the exact same source, which is capital improvements funds. If I could entertain that motion to take all 4 together.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any objection for that? All right, we'll open that up. Jared, if you want to, we'll take all 4 of these together and we'll call
Yep.
for a vote.
Absolutely, and you are correct with your, remembering they are coming from the capital project fund. I don't have the balance, but in the budget, there's about $22 million. And this is some of the first items we're getting to, but we will have the balance on later AIS form for you. So to go through these in order, the first one is the mower max for $276,000. So this is replacing, there you go, it's a great picture, thank you. So this is replacing what we have now, the 2004 John Deere tractor with its own arm. So this, as you can see, is a mower machine. Is specifically made for this and other similar mowing tasks. That's what the other attachments are for. That John Deere tractor, like I said, is 19 years old and has 4,300 hours, so it is due for replacement. This one will need council's approval because of the threshold. The second one is the bucket truck. So this is a bucket truck, again, using Sourcewell for this, so it's a identified procurement location with Custom Truck One Source. So currently we have 2 bucket trucks for our traffic operations. One's a little bit newer. This is the older one. This is for our replacement, our 2008 bucket truck that has 128,000 miles on it. It recently has failed a safety inspection due to overuse on the starting to have some issues with the actual bucket. So again, that's hence the reason for replacement. This is $162,299, so it only needs committee approval for the procurement threshold, so will not be moving forward to council. The third one is the dump truck. This is a dump truck for roads and drainage. This is to replace a 2004, a 19-year-old truck that has 252,000 miles, so a well-used machine. And this is, again, with a Sourcewell contract with Peterbilt for $253,143. And then the last one is for 4 replacement ambulances. So this one's kind of interesting, a little bit of narrative and background on this. So in 2022, we had in the budget and were approved and ordered 2 replacement remount ambulances. And if I get anything wrong, John can correct me, but to try to sum it up. So we had an order purchase with HGAC Buy Cooperative. We placed that order. We have not received it yet. In 2023, we had an order for 2 new ambulances with the same vendor. So come the new fiscal year 24, we still have not received those, yet alone they hadn't even been built nor delivered. However, EMS department was, the vendor reached out to our EMS department and said, hey, we actually have 4 ambulances from another entity that have been a canceled order. They're just coming off the assembly line. Would you want them? So we looked at them to make sure that met our needs and specifications of the other 4 that we had previously ordered, and they do. So again, all this is with the same vendor. So what we have worked out is an opportunity to take ownership of these right away, cancel the other 4 orders at no cost, and then receive these. The backside is some little financial hoops that we have to jump through. So because the first order was from 22, those funds would go back to general fund balance that was in that purchase order. The 23 funds, those purchase order has already rolled over into fiscal year 24 for $310,000, $878. And then in 24, we had budgeted in our capital fund budget $1.2 million, just a little bit over $1.2 million for EMS purchases. So we're going to use the combination of those 2, the rollover from last year and the capital project fund to fund this. So each of the 4 ambulances is approximately $260,000. The total price being there $1,039,984. So that's what this entails, and I'll gladly take any questions on any of those.
Any questions?
I do have a question regarding the Ram 5500. Do we know the cost to repair versus replace?
We're at the point where repairs are not really an option anymore.
So is that one just completely done, or can we get the new one and still have that one?
No, so that's what we were looking at, but because it's beyond repair as far as the operations of that bucket, and the bucket has a safety requirement that we're just going to surplus that vehicle. But in the future, that would be our goal, is if we can have that as an extra. And right now, the way we work, we have one that we'll keep in north and one that we keep in south. So we have 2 bucket trucks kind of strategically placed throughout the county.
Gotcha, thanks.
Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for putting the information on the mower, Max, so I didn't have to go Google it. And am I allowed to drive that? That looks totally cool to drive. But
Well,
no,
you know
I'm
what?
kidding.
We have Public Works has Touch a Piece of Equipment Day, and we usually work with a local group here, and so you want to come sit in and
Let me
take
know
a
when that
picture,
is, yeah.
let you know.
And the other thing is, sometimes people think that we just replace things to replace them. I'm interested, the dump truck is from 2004. The average standard is 10 years, so it should have been 2014. And we have 253,000 miles, twice what the standard is. So that should show the public we're doing good use of their funds for this.
That's right. And our goal internally is to actually keep a newer fleet, because as they get older with more wear and tear, their actually cost
They're
of
costing more.
maintenance goes up.
Right.
So there's a fine line on where that replacement value, and the standard there is 10 years, 125.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I had 2 questions. The dump truck, is it funded with stormwater or general fund?
No, all of this is general fund. That's not a stormwater dump truck, it's a roads and grading.
And at the last stormwater meeting, they mentioned how many vacancies they had. So if Tab wants a second job,
Yeah, that's right.
go get your CDL.
So in
I
public,
already have 4 jobs, but I'd like to run the thing. It looked kind of
Yeah.
cool. No,
But
no.
I think they said 20 vacancies.
yeah, Public Works altogether, there's 49 vacancies. So it's about a
Just wanna make a
25 to
plug.
30% vacancy rate. I know other departments, there's a couple other key departments, and Public Works, and stormwater is really where a large percentage of those vacancies are.
No, thank you, Ms. Howard. I appreciate it.
Perfect. The only statement I wanted to make is I appreciate you given the impact and where they're coming from. I'm glad we're cleaning some of that up, and I also appreciate Sarah getting some of the pictures and stuff there so we
thank
can see exactly what we are purchasing for us and a run back on TV as well for the public. Can we move these forward with no objection?
Yes.
Yes.
They'll move forward with no objections. Number 15, 16, 17, 18 are all approved. Okay, I would like to entertain a motion to move into executive session for numbers 19 and 20. The items are pursuant to SC Code Sections 30-4-70A2 and A1 to receive legal advice covered by the attorney-client privilege relating to the appointment of persons to a public body and discussions of the appointments of such persons. This is pertaining to the 2024 Super Penny Advisory Board. Number 20 is pursuant to SC Code SEC 30-4-70A2, receipt of legal advice where the advice relates to the potential purchase of real property and/or potential condemnation litigation for Shepherd Causeway and Dock Builders Drive. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Bartholomew. Any objection?
Nope.
We'll move into executive session.
Fort Fremont closes out a 350-year legacy of coastal fortifications in Port Royal Sound, beginning in the mid-16th century. It also represents the closing chapter of America's coastal defense system before the dawn of air power. Fort Fremont is an example of the most advanced military technology of its time. It would parallel the B-17, an aircraft carrier of World War II, the F-35 of today. Fort Fremont was an important part of the Beaufort culture, very similar to Parris Island and the Marine Corps Air Base today.
In 1525, the Spaniards named this sound and this harbor Santa Elena. They called the navigational point La Punta de Santa Elena, the point of Santa Elena. And what the Spanish explorers discovered is that Port Royal Sound is a unique piece of geography. It's the deepest natural harbor south of the Chesapeake Bay, possibly south of New York. The channel into Port Royal Sound, this I find a remarkable geological fact. The channel has not changed for 500 years. There's no inlet on the southern coast that hasn't shifted entirely in 500 years, except Port Royal Sound. There's something geologically different, or one might say magical, about Port Royal Sound. So Spanish sailors, being the best in the world in their time, found this place very early, knew that for the Spanish explorations of the American Southeast, this would be the entrada, the entrance. And so they built a city across the river, across the sound from where we are on Parris Island. It became the first capital of Florida. And they explored the backcountry from this location for more than a century with the object of building a highway from this magnificent harbor to Mexico City. So the Sound was known to the Spaniards. It was known to the French, who actually got here first and created the first Protestant colony in the New World on Parris Island over my shoulder. And that colony was a failure. The Spaniards replaced them. It was part of Spanish Florida when the English arrived 150 years later. And this became, as a consequence, a battleground in the 18th century between Spanish interests in Florida and St. Augustine and the English colony in Carolina and in Charleston. And back and forth these wars went, many of them naval wars, many of them employing, as all the sailors knew by then, the magic of Port Royal Sound. When the Civil War came, Confederates defended the harbor, but it was basically indefensible against large naval forces. So the U.S. Navy made it their principal target during the beginning of the Civil War and sent the largest flotilla of ships assembled by the United States Navy in the 19th century into Port Royal Sound on November 7th, 1861. In a 4-hour cannonade, which would have been deafening from where we're sitting, was heard for miles from Savannah nearly to Charleston. It was called the Day of the Big Gun Shoot. During the Civil War, this harbor that we're looking at was filled with ships. There would be hundreds of ships in this harbor. There was a 1,000-foot dock with a railroad on top off of Hilton Head. The military installation was mammoth. There were 13,000 U.S. soldiers on Hilton Head, which we're looking at. The largest population on Hilton Head until 1974. So this was a major U.S. government installation in the heart of the South. It was the headquarters of the U.S. Army Department of the South, but more importantly, it was the headquarters of the United States Navy South Atlantic Blockading Squadron. So the biggest ships in the Navy were here. And so it became, and that's really where the story of Fort Fremont starts, with that huge Civil War military operations and installations on Hilton Head, on St. Helena Island, on Parris Island, and in Beaufort.
After the Civil War, we're going to see a massive change in technology that's going to revolutionize the military. During the Civil War, we had ironclad ships, we had rifle cannons, but they were all made out of iron, and they were not terribly effective. But its technology is going to change after the Civil War. We're going to see steel produced, and steel is much harder. So now we have a new material to make armor out of for ships. So we can have these armored ships made with steel that are much more resistant to shot. Because I have steel, I can make stronger barrels for my guns. I can rifle and machine these much better, and the rifling is the spirals that are cut in the barrel that allows it to shoot further with more accuracy. And we can also now have breech loading guns that can lock from behind, so I can load my gun from behind. I don't have to go have the old black powder muzzle loading cannon I had before. Now I can fire much more rapidly. If I compare the gun of 1890 to the guns of 1860, for the same caliber, the same diameter gun, the 1890 gun will be able to fire a projectile that's 4 times heavier, can shoot it 3 times further, can put it in with greater precision, and can put it through much more armor than anything we had in 1860. It's a world difference. A military historian, E.R. Lewis, would say that the change between the Civil War and 1890 in artillery technology was the greatest that would be seen since invention of artillery in the 14th century to the introduction of the nuclear projectile in the 1950s. So there's been a huge change in gun technology. At the same time, it's not just the steel, but also the powder that fires these guns is different. We have new chemical makeup, and sort of like cordite is invented now, and it's still a widely used military explosive even today. Smokeless powder is invented during this period of time. And it's not just chemical composition, but it's the details of how you make the grain, how fast they burn. So much like the skill of firing a solid rocket, solid fuel rocket, it's that same kind of technology that's been developed in these gunpowder and this new powder. So our weapons of this day are much, much greater. They would be the great killing machines of World War I. Most of the casualties on the battlefields of World War I would come from artillery. So the world has seen a huge change in artillery, and that's tied into changes in ships. We now have steel armored ships. They're all steam powered. They are now equipped with these fine long-range guns, and they now become the dominant threat of the late 19th, early 20th century. This is the threat. The French and the English would bombard cities like Cairo and reduce them to rubble because they were unable to defend them. So this is how the world was seeing the threat from this new technology. Big battleships are the threat of the era, and new guns and fortifications on the ground are what you have to defend against them.
One of the most important and first things that happened after the Civil War is they built a railroad to Port Royal Sound, which didn't exist. It was the first connection of the Sea Islands to the mainland. And the advantage of that railroad is it brought coal to Port Royal Sound. So when the coal was delivered, the Navy followed.
In 1872, Robert Smalls was in the South Carolina legislature, and he pushed through a resolution to the Secretary of War calling for them to put a Navy station on Parris Island. And eventually he would go on to Congress, where he would continue his support for a Navy station here in the Beaufort-Port Royal area. They eventually opened a Navy station here, and a coaling station.
They created in the 1890s on Parris Island the largest dry dock in the United States. This is the period when the U.S. Navy was switching from sail to steam. All the navies of the world needed a coaling station. This was the principal coaling station, because of the railroad, for the Caribbean and South American U.S. fleets.
This would be the biggest dry dock south of Norfolk. In fact, it is the only dry dock south of Norfolk, Virginia, that's capable of taking these new modern battleships and these new modern armored cruisers. So this becomes, at this point, a strategic Navy base in that it provides coal, and it provides top-line support to the ships, and they can repair the hulls of even the biggest ships in the U.S. Navy. Following the Civil War, national strategy and emphasis in the United States shifted to recovery from war, and all of our coastal fortifications went into neglect. The military was busy taming the West, and coastal defenses became something that was no longer important. In the rest of the world, technology is moving forward, and they're developing these battleships, they're developing new high-quality artillery, and this is going on worldwide. And in 1885, President Grover Cleveland appointed the Endicott Board. This was headed by Secretary of War Endicott, William Endicott, and the board would meet and issue a report in 1886, and they said that the conditions of our coastal defenses were just unbearable. They cannot be allowed to stay like that. And they made recommendations for fortification and improvements. They identified 29 places that needed fortifications, and 11 of which were critical. In that list of 29, Savannah and Charleston are on the list, but Beaufort is not on the list. It'll take international events to bring Beaufort into the play of modern fort technology.
So the USS Maine was here on patrol and in the harbor, and while they were in the harbor several times, they entertained the local population. So the merchants and the social leaders and the political leaders of Beaufort were invited to come have lunch with the captain of the ship, Captain Sigsbee. And the officers got to know the people got to know the officers. The crew, which was large, would go ashore on payday and make friends with everybody in town. So it was a very social arrangement between the towns, Port Royal and Beaufort, and the ship. So the Maine left here, it went and reprovisioned, it refueled in Key West, and then went the 90 miles across to Havana into the harbor and blew up.
This inflamed the already hot passions both in Cuba and here in the United States. At that point, somebody in the War Department realized that we had this big dry dock, the only dry dock in the South that could take on and repair these big capital ships that were in our Navy. We were going to start operations against a power in the Caribbean, and this fort was totally undefended. And that's what put Fort Fremont on the map. We had to have a fort here to defend the coaling station, and especially this big dry dock, as well as this fine harbor that's here.
And of course, that event, which killed 300 or more sailors on the ship, was very much followed by the local news media and very much lamented by the many friends that the crew had made here. The destruction of the USS Maine was a personal matter to Beaufort and to Port Royal Sound. And of course, it was the Spanish-American War and the attempt to defend this harbor again, which led to the creation of Fort Fremont. The United States declared war on Spain in April 1898.
And by early May, we had temporary batteries in place here, submarine mines were in place, and in the summer they would actually place the mines across the Beaufort River behind me. The temporary batteries were a temporary expedient. They were located to my left about 1,000 yards. They immediately began construction of what would become Fort Fremont. The large batteries would house the large guns. Battery 4 Nance, the rapid-fire guns, the smaller battery, was completed by June of 1898.
In 1898, everybody in town went to war. They had a naval militia unit, South Carolina Naval Militia Unit, and they were absorbed by the Navy. Many of them ran tugboats from here to New York to Key West, which was the principal support base, Tampa and Key West, for the U.S. Army operations in Cuba.
Peace was declared by the end of 1898, and the remainder of Fort Fremont would not be finished until early 1899, and the first soldiers would arrive from the regular army at that point in March 1899.
Well, Fort Fremont was named for Major General John Fremont. He was actually a local boy, so to speak. He was born and grew up in Savannah, Georgia, just south of us, and went to college in the College of Charleston, up just north of us in Charleston. He served in the Army, and primarily initially as a explorer, as Army forts were generally named for Army officers, and he was connected locally. This is more than likely why the fort was named for him.
The fort was constructed on a site directly across the river from the Parris Island Naval Station. And the site selected was 170 acres, which included the two artillery batteries. Fort Fremont, of course, had Battery Fornes and Battery Jessup. But then adjacent to the battery site was an administrative quadrangle, a very typical military-type administrative square.
We are sitting in the number 3 gun position of a 3-gun battery, Battery Jessup, which had 3 10-inch disappearing carriage, large caliber guns, breech-loading guns. Their purpose was to engage the warships that might be entering the harbor and Port Royal Sound. We're here now at the 2nd battery that was part of Fort Fremont. This is Battery Fornance, was named for Army officer that was actually killed during the Spanish-American War during the Battle of San Juan Hill. Battery Fornance mounted 2 British-made 4.72-inch Armstrong quick-fire guns. They were called quick-fire because they were loaded with a complete cartridge, and in time of action they could fire 4 to 6 rounds per minute. The purpose of Battery Fornance was to defend the minefield, which was the other component of the Endicott Coast Artillery or Coast Defense System. A minefield with controlled mines, controlled meaning that they were connected electrically to shore and could be fired on command from shore. That control station would have been probably shared with the plotting room. And in order to protect the minefield, obviously an enemy would want to interfere with that, might send vessels, small ships in here at night to try to interfere, and this battery would take those vessels under fire if there was suspected that they were doing something to interfere with the mines, such as pulling up the cables and cutting those.
The Endicott era fort was a formidable technology. It represented state-of-the-art technology, defense technology of its time against the state-of-the-art threat, which would be the battleship.
The life for the soldiers at Fort Fremont was disciplined and regimented. They even had meal times were specified lengths of time, 15 minutes for lunch, 15 minutes at breakfast, 20 minutes at supper. They had to practice their skills. They were training and doing maintenance constantly. If you can imagine, with these big guns, they had to have skills and practice the skills in artillery, mine laying, signaling, which involved, in our case at Fort Fremont, the use of the fire control tower, which was a pretty sophisticated and advanced signaling technique. Then they also had to practice the typical military skills, marching and drilling, small arms fire, first aid, and so forth. In addition to that, They also participated in athletics. They had physical training, PT, and they also had sports teams. So this was to keep them physically fit so that they could continue their duties, because it was pretty rigorous at Fort Fremont.
When eventually the decision was made to move the dry dock and the coaling station and the Navy station up to Charleston, then this fort no longer became significant. There was nothing left here that was to be protected. And at that point, 1911, the last troops were transferred out and the fort was closed.
In 1901, the mayor of Charleston and the United States Senator Pitchfork Ben Tillman from South Carolina wanted this to move from Beaufort County to Charleston County, because there are more votes in Charleston County, and the mayor wanted the U.S. Corps of Engineers and the Navy to dredge the harbor in Charleston, because battleships in those days required 26 feet of water. Charleston's natural harbor is 15 feet of water. Port Royal is 30 feet of water. In order for Charleston to sustain its port, its commercial port, it had to dredge the harbor. Well, if they could get the Navy up there, they get the Corps of Engineers to dredge the harbor. That was the play. And the play for Pitchfork Ben Tillman, the U.S. Senator in 1900, was that he'd get a whole lot more votes from the largest city in South Carolina. So it was a political, commercial operation, and they moved the nation, and it was done, boom, like that.
The fort did its job. It was a deterrent for anybody that wished to attack these. It provided protection. In fact, the whole Endicott system, although never challenged in this era here in the United States, provided some 300 major guns, coastal guns, to protect major areas, and left the United States at the beginning of the 20th century with as well-defended coastline as any place in the world.
But I would just like to say that it's a magnificent artifact of an era. And it's an era that has been neglected. The turn of the 20th century, the naval station across the river here. And so it's a piece of history that's disappearing, and the Friends of Fort Fremont and Beaufort County have preserved it for the use of the public and as a memorial to that moment in history.
Fort Fremont closes a 350-year story of homeland security addressing European imperialism in the 19th century. It's a tale of how geography, technology, and national security creates a transition for America to become a global power. It's also a wonderful snapshot of America in the beginning of the 20th century. The Friends of Fort Fremont and Beaufort County have a valued partnership working in tandem to preserve the fort's integrity and promote the historical, natural, and cultural aspects of the fort. Most important, we are always looking for creative ways to enhance the visitor experience.
It's civilization versus nature's fury. Raging blizzards bury cities under thousands of tons of snow. Howling hurricanes tear apart coastal communities with wind and rain. and flash floods wipe entire towns off the face of the earth. As the skies clear, people begin to pick up the pieces. But after the storm, insidious damage is still being done. Our most vital natural resource is under assault, our nation's waters.
We're at the Chattahoochee Nature Center, and we're trying to find out what a watershed is. First victim. I need you to tell me what a watershed is. Do you have any idea?
Watershed? A watershed? Where people go to the bathroom? Sweating, I guess.
Something to do with sweating?
Uh-huh.
Like after you run, when
You perspire, yeah.
and then you shed it?
Uh-huh.
We wanted to ask you if you knew what a watershed was.
A watershed?
Yeah.
Is it kind of like the rain?
Do you know what a watershed is?
Shed that holds water.
Come here for a second. I want to ask you something. Do you know what a watershed is?
No. No.
Do you have any idea? What do you think it has something to do with?
I don't know.
What a watershed is?
Yeah.
That's just a drain pool, I guess you'd say, or the drain area, that's where the rainwater drains into the river.
Correct. That's a great answer.
A watershed is that area of land that drains to a body of water, be that if it's a river, a stream, the ocean, an estuary, a bay. Wherever you live drains to some water body, and you live in a watershed. So everyone lives in a watershed.
And in this modern industrial age, our water sources are becoming more contaminated with each passing year.
The biggest water quality problem that we have in the nation today is polluted runoff.
All water east of the Continental Divide drains to the Atlantic, while water west of the divide flows to the Pacific. And one drop of rain can cross many different watersheds along the way. As runoff flows into rivers, streams, and storm drains, the water picks up trash, dirt, bacteria, toxic chemicals, and fertilizers, creating a soup of pollutants that is extremely hazardous to the environment. And the consequences of polluted runoff exist worldwide.
The UN estimate is that there's about 1 billion people on the planet right now who don't have adequate access to fresh water.
97% of all water on Earth is salty ocean water. Of the remaining 3% that's fresh, over 2/3 is frozen in glaciers and polar ice. That leaves less than 1% of all the planet's water for our use.
I predict in the future that some of the U.S. water needs are going to come through pipeline because we have just overused our supply.
To address the complex threats facing U.S. water resources, the Environmental Protection Agency recommends adopting a watershed approach.
We're trying to reconnect some of the river.
It's a method that looks at each watershed for its own unique set of environmental challenges and solutions.
In many cases, people mistakenly identify large discharge pipes in the water as the problem. But that may not be the problem. It may be coming from agricultural runoff. It may be coming from stormwater runoff over parking lots and impervious surfaces. Every watershed is different, and you need to look at each watershed in its own terms and then think systematically about how you remediate, how you clean up that watershed.
In California, the Santa Monica Bay watershed drains a dangerous amount of polluted runoff after each storm.
When it rains, literally the whole residue of urban living ends up getting washed into the storm drain system and ends up going straight into the bay on Santa Monica Bay's beaches with no treatment whatsoever.
It's actually like a giant toilet flushing because all of the pollution, the dog mess has been building up and building up and building up. When it rains, it just flushes into the storm drain and goes directly into the surf.
In 1996, the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission proved there was a link between the contaminated runoff in the Santa Monica Bay and reports of illness afflicting people who swim there.
What we did find was at the outlets of storm drains, no matter where they were up and down the bay, if there was a flow of runoff into the surf zone, those people that were swimming in those areas definitely experienced higher incidences of illnesses.
The pollutants in the water affect surfers because we're actually the indicator species with all the pollutants. When we are in the waters, we're ingesting it through our skin and our mouth. Even if people don't take a swallow of water, it's still getting into our systems, our ears, any orifice on your body. And it causes infections, it can cause colds, sore throats at the very least.
I wouldn't want to swim in water that's got those diseases in there.
just floating around, making more diseases.
I've seen it pretty much as bad as it can be. I've seen crap floating out in the water, literally.
Generically, we call it fecal coliform. More specifically, you might know of it as E. coli, salmonella, or enterococcus. Whatever's in poop.
There's times when it tastes funky, for sure.
Every day, the city and county of Los Angeles perform a battery of tests to keep the public informed about water quality in the Santa Monica Bay. Cesar Arzadan begins the monitoring process each morning by taking a series of coastline water samples. Then it's back to the lab for analysis.
Most of the bacteria that you're going to see, it comes from feces. And when you put it under the UV light, you're going to see a different kind of color. It's a fluorescent sign that there is a bacteria, and that one is called E. coli. That one definitely is feces from animals, or it could be humans also.
The results are reported to the health department, and beach warnings are posted as necessary.
The number of beach postings has decreased, and 85% of the beaches that have been monitored in California have received either A or B grades, and that's significantly different than 4 years ago.
But while progress is being made in California, the harmful effects of polluted runoff are a growing concern everywhere. So what can the average person do to help reduce pollution in our watersheds?
How you apply pesticides or not in your garden, how you wash your cars, making sure that you don't throw cigarette butts out onto the street.
Do not dump things on the ground, especially oils or any chemical pollutants. Pick up after your dogs. A lot of people don't realize how important that is.
Out of executive session, and there are no matters rising out of executive session. The only time there are comments is if there are matters rising out, and there are not. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.